to the Goody Room, your one-stop shop for everything movies, TV, and more. We know you want the goodies. Welcome back to the Goody Room. I'm your host, Matt the Nachos. With me always is my C-3PO to my R2-T2, Frank Scutella. How you doing, Frankie Rock?
I'm doing all right. How you doing today?
Yeah, the allergies, just the time of year.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And you know it sucks. The Ohio summer snow hasn't even begun to fall yet. And as you can hear, I'm all allergened up, man. I'm so
I was just going to ask about that. So, for those of you listening, and most of you are, out in Frank's area and, Columbus, Ohio, that region. But the pollen is so thick, it looks like snow.
and it typically comes end of May, beginning of June. And it almost looks like the end of the world sometimes. All this pollen falling. It's like, what is happening here? So yeah, it's springtime. What are you gonna do? But just I don't know, drink your orange juice or whatever.
Yeah, we got a full episode here today. We're gonna do a little lightning round where Frank's gonna run through some things. He caught up on some of the shows that we had mentioned here in the past. He wanted to give some thoughts and updates on, and then we're gonna do a little Goody Room lecture today. We got a couple of topics that Frank and I have talked about in the past, things that have been on our mind. We're gonna talk favorite trilogies. So that's one item. We've kind of mentioned this a little bit in the collecting episode. So if you want to hear more about collecting, go back and check out that episode. But we're going to stick specifically to trilogies that we both enjoy. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, both of us are fathers. So things that, we want to introduce our kids to or have introduced our kids to that they seem to really enjoy. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get into the lightning round. So, Frank, I'll kick it over to you.
All right. Thanks so much. So I'm going to go through just a couple shows that I don't think need to be a full stream or botch. So I'm just going to go through a lightning round. The first one up is a show that's been on Hulu for a while that was recommended to me by our non-sponsor, my dad, who hasn't given us any money yet. So we're still waiting for that check to come in the mail. Please hurry up on that. We would like that money to use on useless things. Anyway, the show is called Only Murderers in the Building, and it's 3 seasons on Hulu, and it's Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez. And a bunch of old comedians and their friends start showing up too. And I remember when this first came out and was being advertised, I just had no interest in this show, but it kept getting like 95, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Each season's better than the last, apparently. Finally, my dad was like, oh my gosh, you need to watch this. You'd love it. My wife and I just randomly started watching it and we loved it. I thought all 3 seasons were great. Fair warning, with season 3, the first couple episodes moved very slow. And I was honestly starting to think like, all right, this is where the show kind of starts, nosediving and it's run its course. The back half of season 3 is amazing. Keep watching. And I love how each season, Matt, it does that great thing as all good shows do. They should do. They set it up for the next season and gets you excited. I can't wait for season 4. Okay. Next up on my list is the show Ripley, which is based off the novel The Talented Mr. Ripley. You might have remembered the movie from the 90s with Matt Damon. Here, this is a Netflix show where they've taken the novel and expanded it out into 8 episodes. I really loved the style of the show. It was all in black and white. It was set in the 50s, and it really reminded me of watching an old Alfred Hitchcock movie. However, being that I had read the book and I've seen the Matt Damon movie, I thought 8 episodes was a little long, and it robbed the story of all the suspense. Now, if you haven't read the book or watched the old Matt Damon movie, then this might be something that you will probably love because it's just a good classic con man story. I really enjoyed the movie with Matt Damon. I will admit, as I was watching this show, I would have rather watched the movie with Matt Damon again, personally. But that's just me. But if you haven't watched or read the book, definitely check this show out. It's very stylistically done. It's well executed. But being that it was just yet another adaptation, and I've already read the book and I've watched the movie, I already knew what was going to happen. And the slow pace wasn't bad. It's just I knew it was going to happen, so there was no suspense for me, and I thought it brought nothing new to the table story wise. Just stylistically, that's where they really improved. And lastly, last episode, Matt was telling me about the show on Netflix called The Gentleman, and he caught my attention. Now, I thought it was pretty good, but everybody I talked to, other than Matt, well, maybe Matt, I don't know if you mentioned this, but a lot of people were telling me how rushed the ending was. I thought the ending was perfect. I loved the ending. In fact, it left me wanting more, and I was actually sad that it was over. And I was like, oh, great. Now I got to go find another show. So, jumping off of last week's streamer Botch, I would absolutely say stream that one for sure. The Gentleman on Netflix.
Yeah, well, this is why we have this show, Frank, because people are wrong, and we need to let the people know what the right facts are.
That's
And
right.
I got to do my own little lightning round here, because I got to bring something up I'm a little upset about, right?
Oh, go ahead.
I went and sponsored us myself, right?
You did.
And somebody who shall not be named enjoyed that Dune 2 at the low cost of free.
Yes. Almost demanded to watch it while he was staying with someone on this podcast who we will not mention.
Next time I'm changing the password.
Listen, if you change your password, I'm going to have to change my password. And that's how friendships break apart. Now, do we really want to do that?
Well, that's this unknown person's fault.
Look what he's doing to us.
He's tearing us apart.
He's tearing us apart.
He's like Padme. It's all over again.
It's
all right. All right. This is a classic Obi-Wan Anakin Skywalker friendship being torn apart by Padme.
Padme, aka our non-sponsor.
All right. I just had to get that off my chest. My own personal lightning round. Yes, go check out The Gentleman. All right. Yeah, he talks about Ripley. Yeah, he knows I'm already going to say it. I did not like the Matt Damon movie. That's just my opinion. Doesn't mean you won't like it. I understood where it was going. I think the movie is slow paced too. But there are a lot of things that a lot of people I think would like about it. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Speaking of our sponsor, though, or what you did sponsor for us, Matt, what we're talking about is Matt went ahead and bought Dune 2 and put it on the Movies Anywhere for us to enjoy. And got to tell you, I thought I loved it in the theater. I loved it even better this time. I think it helped because I watched Dune 1 right beforehand and then immediately followed it with Dune 2 and just saw like the little hints in the first movie. And I was like, oh, that's because the second movie, la-di-da-di-da. And man, just still blown away. Go watch Dune 2.
Yep, we're leveling up, baby.
Look at us.
And it's the same thing. We have another mutual friend between the two of us. He has access to the Movies Anywhere. He watched Dune 1 for the first time on one of the streaming services that he had, and he immediately went and watched Dune 2. And so he actually has never read the book, kind of like you, Frank, right? Or you've read the book, right?
Right.
I didn't read the book. He's never read it. And I said, listen, there's going to be things you probably don't understand. He didn't feel exactly the same way, but I feel like it's a different story, though, if both are available to you right now. Like, I had to wait a year or so, right? Whatever, how long, for the next sequel to come out to understand what all this stuff was happening and going on.
Yeah, this guy watched it, probably had a little lunch, and then went right into Dune 2.
I would love to have a little lunch sponsored by, a certain someone. But
lunch would be that would be a good start. That would get your foot back in the door. A little lunch sponsor.
Anyways, we're going to get moving on here. get into our Goody Room lectures here. The first one we are talking about is favorite trilogies. So I know we've kind of we've talked about this in the collecting episode. Frank and I obviously we watch a lot of stuff, we collect a lot of stuff, and our friendship was really built on collecting movies. Like that's how we first started kind of talking to each other, getting similar interests. And one of the things we've always really liked was the trilogy box art. So like if you want to hear more about that, check out the next episode. But Frank, won't you kick it off here? Give me one of your favorite trilogies.
I'm gonna go with, because it's kind of current, because the next one is gonna be coming out. I'm gonna go with the recent Planet of the Apes trilogies, and I believe I've talked about this before on this podcast. I just think that what a strong start with the very first one, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then the second movie just immediately is like, okay, we were at a 5, we're gonna go up to an 11, and then the third movie goes 11. That's nothing. We're gonna go up straight up to 100. And it just, I love how we get to see Caesar as a young chimp and then grow into an old man, so to speak, and just to see his life journey in the trilogy, and just how each movie just escalates and escalates to the point where the story just really comes to a great fruition. I love these movies. The new one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, coming out in a few weeks. I'm actually looking forward to rewatching the trilogy, probably starting here soon. That way I can get all caught up, or watching it after, whenever I find time. But I know you like these movies too. What do you think? What's your favorite part about this trilogy?
I actually glad you brought this one up because I wasn't thinking about this, but I'm really a big fan of these movies too. I personally like just how they kind of started out with, how this all came to be, right? And that's what this trilogy really is how did this world become overtaken by, apes, monkeys, right? And I think the part for me is, Frank and I joke a lot about, movies that have a lot of story and not a lot of action, and we'll say, oh, there wasn't enough action in it for you,
Right, right.
right? This trilogy is one of those movies. It's a lot of story, but it's very well done. Especially like I think it's the third one, right? I thought that was like the cream of the crop,
It
as
was almost Shakespearean how well that story wise that was done. Um,
yeah, and like cream of the crop, as Randy Savage would say, right?
the
And
cream.
it always rises to the top.
That's right.
But we talked about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, right? That's coming out here in a little while, and we talked about that also in our summer releases that we were looking forward to. So go check that episode out as well too. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of these movies. Can't wait for the new one. Um,
I think
overall big fan.
I think what really sells it is Andy Serkis's performance as Caesar. If you don't know, Andy Serkis was the gentleman behind Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, and he really brought motion capture performances to the main stage. And to be honest, when War came out, he was so like this. You thought he did well as Gollum, like he just really brought some gravitas to this role. And I remember thinking, like, I'm not saying he should be up for best actor, but like they should create their own category. They need to have a category for in the Oscars for best motion capture performance. So Andy Serkis can take home an award every time he does a movie. But I think, going back to your part, Matt, why the movie, I think, yes, there's a lot of story, and the action isn't too much. I think the most action is in the very first one, Rise. That probably has the most action. But in the second two, which are directed by Matt Reeves, who just did the new Batman, so there you go. It's just awesome direction behind all those movies. But the
Well,
story,
the people who voted Robert Pattinson as the second worst Batman ever didn't think so.
well, they don't know anything. But with the story, with the action, when the action does happen, I honestly always felt like the action served a purpose to the story and drove the story forward. And by the end of those movies, I always just like really felt for the characters, whether they be the apes or the humans, right, wrong, or indifferent. even in the second movie when he goes against, I think the ape's name is Koba, who is essentially his Scar. The second movie, I will admit, goes very Lion King on itself, which, okay, no problem. It's a good story, but you understand why Koba is the way that he is because he's introduced in the first movie very briefly towards the end, but like really is expanded on in the sequel. And then he even comes back a little bit in the third one, not spoiling it, but man, it just, the characters are really well developed across the three movies. And that's one of the reasons I love these movies so much. And it's the Planet of the Apes movies, guys. They are just so much fun. They've always been fun. Even the crappy Tim Burton movie has its moments, just you just turn your mind off, have a good time.
Yeah, they've been around for forever. They'll be around forever. I mean, our kids will be watching Planet of the Apes.
Right. Jumping into our next topic, things that can't wait to introduce our kids to. This would be one of them, but that's next topic. Matt, what is a trilogy that you want to talk about?
I mean, it's going to be an obvious one, I think, for me. It's something I watch literally every single year, never fails. It's the Lord of the Rings. I can just, I mean, it really is it's so great, just to watch and journey to destroy the One Ring, and I personally, guys, I wait until the dead of winter when it's cold outside, snow's on the ground. I get the lights real dark, and Frank knows I got all the lighting, the mood lighting, all of my house, right? I turn on just go on and go through trying to travel to Mordor to destroy this One Ring. But yeah, that's got to do it for me. I mean, it's just the perfect trilogy.
Let me ask you, when you do them, I assume you do the extended editions, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't I?
Right. Well, I know that we both bought the same Blu-ray box set of the trilogy, and they are the extended editions. And I want to say we bought those in like 2011, 2012, and that is how long I've been watching the extended editions. And now I feel like if I watched the non-extended edition, I don't even, I'm at a point I don't even remember what was like the added scene and what was original. I just think,
I know.
oh,
I
you
abs-
know,
I absolutely know. Yeah, and I point it out every time. Like it's almost like a fun little game to me when I watch
yeah.
them. Like I know which ones are extended and which ones aren't.
I think there's like one or two scenes that stick out. Like, okay, this probably wasn't an extended scene because this is going on far too long. Not to say that I think these movies are too long. I mean, they were long to begin with, and then he's like, "But what if the same movie with another half hour or 45 minutes?" And you're like, "Yes, please." You know.
Yeah, my wife shakes her head every time I put them on because she knows I'm just going to be watching them back to back, and I'm just going to be sitting there all night in Middle Earth.
My favorite story about your wife and these movies was when you first got the set and she had like left to go do something and you were texting me about this and she came back and you're like, and she was like, "Are you still watching this movie?" And you were just like, "You can't just watch one. You got to watch them all."
It's a journey. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
All right, it's like Masters of the Universe. Like one of the things they'd say, like, what is it, like, peace be the journey or something like
Peace
that.
be the journey. Yeah. Oh my. I would also, you know, I think out of the three movies, not to say that this two and three are bad, I love them dearly, but I really enjoy the Fellowship of the Ring. There's just something about how it all kicks off, and you're meeting all the characters, and I love how now when I rewatch them and I go through the first and second one, because by the time you get to three, there's only like one or two characters that haven't been introduced, but every time I'm watching them and the character is introduced in their scenes, I'm always just, it's almost like being reintroduced to an old friend.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have like one that I would single out as a favorite. I really like them all. I like all the characters. We make jokes about
Yeah.
different characters all the time, and especially like Rohan and Gondor are like, we've called for aid.
My poor brother in the group chat when you're like Gondor calls for aid, and I just throw back, and Rohan will answer. He's just like, sure.
Yeah, he has no idea. I mean,
None.
he's over there like the steward of Gondor,
He is
just
Stewart of Gondor. Sitting
yeah,
there eating his tomatoes, all gross like.
yeah, just squirting tomato juice all over his mouth. Like,
Come sing me a song.
so anyways, that's one of mine. But Frank, why don't you kick it off with another one here?
All right. And it also is, it's not so much a hot take, but my next favorite trilogy would absolutely be the Dark Knight trilogy, Christopher Nolan, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. Here's where it kind of gets into like, people would be like, really? That's how you think of it? It's like, yes, this is exactly how I think about it. These three movies are the actual account of what happened in Gotham. Okay. Like when people are like, here, the Batman story, this is what, in my mind, this is what actually happened. Everything else, like the comics, the other movies, that's the legend. Okay.
Did people really think that?
That's what I think.
Okay.
No, that's what I think. And like I think I brought this up to you. I brought this up to other people before too, and they're like, "Well, that doesn't make any sense." And it's like, Shh, I don't care. This is what I. That's how much I love these movies.
It's the perfect Batman story. It's so realistic, right?
Yes,
Like, this is the reality of Batman. Like,
right, right.
this is not fake Batman.
No,
Like,
this isn't like, it's not. And I love the Tim Burton movies, and but they're kind of set up like an opera in a way, like the
yeah,
sets and everything. It almost reminds you of theater in a way, which is not a bad thing, but the realistic approach Christopher Nolan took to these three movies, and just how he's like, you know, I always use this example, and it's the Catwoman example, how she had her goggles, okay? She's got her goggles down, and she's like, I'm Catwoman. People are like, that's not Catwoman. But when she pulls the goggles up and puts it on her head, it looks like cat ears, okay? And it's like, she's Catwoman without actually dressing and looking like Catwoman. Like, that's brilliant in my mind. Like, you're paying homage to these original characters without going full comic book.
yeah, like, and that's what I liked about it too. Like, it's very, like I said, we said realistic, and then I mean, how quotable is Bane?
Bane is, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to put it out there. Matt, I'm going to air our dirty laundry. Matt and I have an unhealthy obsession with quoting Bane. But if you think about it, all of his quotes, very versatile in real life, like just on the day to day.
I 100% agree. I mean, you can use his quotes all the time. I mean, we do, and we even do it, and if you're not doing it in the voice, you're not doing it right.
It's kind of like when you're singing Creed songs. If you're not doing the Creed voice while singing the Creed songs, just don't do it at all. So it's the same concept with Bane. Like, you must do the voice, Batman.
Right. Oh my god. All right. And I'm going to bring up one more. It's another movie, trilogy that I watch, every so often. I find myself just really enjoying them. It's The Matrix.
Oh, yes.
I mean, honestly, nothing will top the first one,
No.
but the whole trilogy I really enjoy, and it's just great. And I don't know. Like, I just find myself, like, whenever I rewatch them, these are just so good. And why don't more people like rewatch these and talk about these? But we're not going to talk about these new ones that they're coming up with,
No, no,
right?
no, no. Like, they don't count. But jumping back to the original trilogy, every time I rewatch those movies, I think the same thing. Why don't I watch these every day?
Yep, exactly. I
And
mean, they give us bullet time,
right. And a lot of people hate on the sequels, but it's like they had to tell a story. They had to expand the universe. Like, if you would have just redid everything the same, like the first movie did, you would have been bored and you would hate it too. So, like, I just feel like they were doomed if they did, doomed if they didn't, regardless. Um,
you remember it was like the MTV Movie Awards with Justin Timberlake and
And Stifler.
Sean Sean William Scott, I think is his
Yeah.
name. And they did the whole Matrix too. Like,
I like it. The one thing that I always like, it just like burned into my mind from that skit was when like Justin Timberlake starts dancing. He's trying to like get Neo to like break his stoicness, and he goes, "You can do the robot with JT." It's just, I don't know why that's like just burned in there.
I always remember two scenes from that. Wet Willie, Mr. Timberlake. and then I think it's Will Ferrell is the architect. He's like, "Er so vis-a-vis concordant."
So in the Matrix trilogy,
True. That's so true with that character.
and the influence of the original Matrix, like it's reached new bounds, because like how many movies in from like 1999 till probably like 2005 were like spoofing it or doing bullet time, and it wasn't like we're gonna do our own thing like bullet time, we're gonna do it exactly like the Matrix, like to the point where it kind of got like ad nauseum. It's like, we get it, you saw the Matrix too, everybody did, now let's move on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But those are some of our favorite trilogies. Let us know what your favorite trilogies are. Drop them in the comments.
One last trilogy. Sorry, I feel like you and I have to talk about this one. Back to the Future.
That is one of my favorites.
Yeah. Maybe we do a Back to the Future episode. I'm just gonna slide that in. Just a taste for the next time we talk trilogies.
I mean, it is like the perfect movie.
Absolutely. I
That
mean,
could never be made today.
never could be made today. And like, I always see people are like, we need a Back to the Future 4. No, we don't need a fourth one. Or people are like, we need to remake Back to the Future. And it's like, just shut up. We don't need to remake. Just rewatch Back to the Future. How about that?
And that's why this show exists.
Exactly. All right. I'm done with trilogies. Take us to the next topic, sir.
All right. I'm going to throw you in my DeLorean and gun it 80 to 88 miles per hour to the next topic.
Okay.
All right. The next one, things we want to introduce our children to. So, Frank and I, we're fathers. We both have, kids, young kids. Some of them, they're not old enough to enjoy some of the things that we enjoy. Like, my son's starting to get there, and I always tell Frank about some of the things I'm introducing him to. Like, for example, I introduced him to Super Mario. And he was super into Super Mario for
no pun intended. Huh?
Yeah, right. For a long time. I mean, so much that we got him the Legos. We went and saw the movie. Right, absolutely in love with it. And these are games and characters that I grew up playing and loving too. And so just to kind of see me get to an age where I'm watching now my son enjoy it, it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. Real quick, before I get into some of the things that I'm looking forward to introduce my son to, this topic was actually suggested to us by one of our listeners, Joe. Thank you for your suggestion. If you are a listener and want to hear us talk about a topic you think is interesting, drop us, like, comment, subscribe, tell us. And, look at this. We're literally going to do it. Right here we are. We're doing it. But anyway.
Unless you're our potential sponsor, because I don't want to hear your opinions until you sponsor.
Yeah. And, again, lunch would be nice. But I've recently just kind of been going through the Transformers movies, and I had the original Transformers on last night. And it's the opening scene, and the helicopter lands, starts to transform. My son was we call him the Zoomies. He's running around, and he stopped dead in his tracks as it was transforming. I saw his eyes get like massive, and he was like, "Oh, wow." And he came over and sat next to me on the couch, and he sat like a rock for about an hour. Didn't finish the movie, but for him, that's a long time. He's 3.5. And when the Transformers were fighting, he would be saying things like, "Oh no, here he comes." And just to see him enjoying the movie, I wasn't watching the movie. I was watching him, and I just was having a blast. So I think Transformers will be one of our bonding things. So what a great thing, because everybody can enjoy Transformers. It's robots fighting. Like, what's not to love?
Yeah, they're automobiles that transform into giant robots.
They're more than meets the eye. Okay.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Thank you. Thank you. No.
You come up with that by yourself.
Yeah, well, I think I might have heard it somewhere. I just came up with it.
You
um
know, one thing I've actually been really enjoying, and this happened a little bit with my son. I'm seeing it with my daughter as well too. But I've actually been introducing them to old '90s cartoons that I grew up watching. So my son, for a while, was real into watching Hey Arnold, and I was enjoying it too. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this episode. Right now, my daughter, her and I are watching Rugrats. And I was like, and so we were watching with they go to the playground and there's a junk food kid who's like a bully of the playground. And so when the shadows go away, that's when the junk food kid bully comes out, and she bullies anyone that's on her playground, and Tommy Pickles stands up to her. And at the end of the episode, I sent it to Frank because it's just, did they make memes about it? It's so hilarious. But he's all like squinty eye. He's like, yeah, I'd best be getting home and take a nap. Get my bottle, my blanket, and the nap.
Nap. Oh, love a good nap. That's great. I remember my parents sitting me down and watching like the Flintstones and the Jetsons, things that they grew up watching, which was cool. So I know when I get to that point with my son, when he's really understanding what's going on, 90s Nickelodeon is just like the standard for me. Like, that's where we're gonna start. That's where we're gonna go. I also
That's I'm sorry. But that's just when a kid could be a kid.
that is when a kid could be a kid. You come up with that all on your own.
Nah, no, I didn't.
No. I think this is probably like the obvious pick for us, but I'm so looking forward to introducing my son to Star Wars, but I have a sneaky suspicion he'll be like my brother and just not like Star Wars at all, which would be completely fine, but it might break my heart a little bit. But I know like Star Wars has just been a lifelong love for me, and I'd love to have share it with my son, or we have another one on the way. My daughter could be her too, but being that Leo or my son is around right now, um, it's like he's sitting in right here, and I can't wait to watch him. When the last time I watched him, when the opening crawls come up and the music kicks in, he'll stop and watch that. But once that's done, he's back to doing whatever the heck he was doing.
You know, that's because they don't yet understand the power of the dark side.
Don't know the power of the dark side.
All right, and for your brother, I find they got this one for him.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
All
That's
right,
right. That's right. It was funny because when the sequel trilogy was out, I forget which one, but he was around when I went to see one of them, and he came with me, and he was a good sport about it. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, that was good," but you could tell like he was sitting there, just kind of like, "All right, all right, all right." I have no idea what's happening here.
but yeah, that happens, right? But
Sure.
going back to kind of the movies, one thing I know I've mentioned this, in the past before, but I've been really putting off watching the whole Marvel universe in chronological order. All right, which Disney Plus sets up like for you, and you
Yeah.
can go and you
Very
can,
cool of them to do that.
yeah, and you don't have to think about it, right? Because those movies, they all came out at different times, so they actually have it on a bar, and you just go like click one by one. And I'm hoping he gets into superheroes. The only superhero he's really been interested in is Spider-Man. He's not so much into Spider-Man anymore, but I hope one day he gets into some of the other characters, and
Right.
I can show him that whole, kind of timeline, because that was, an event that really changed movies. you
It
know,
did. It did. Well, it changed how. you can do a franchise. It wasn't just like 1, 2, and 3 anymore. It was like, we're gonna go over here, now we're gonna go over there, and now we're gonna go back in time. Things like that.
Yeah, and they teased, right, like these Avenger level, threats,
Right.
right? Thanos was teased for years before he actually was a villain in the Infinity Wars.
Right. I remember when he was first starting to show up, everybody's like, I know who that is, and everybody'd be like, who the heck is that? They're leaning over their buddy. And then he'd show up again and be like, oh, it's that guy that no one knows who he is.
Right, but that's definitely something like I'm looking forward to. The Iron Man's, right, the Captain
Right.
America's, Doctor Strange, and every once in a while I'll put him on, but he's not in there. He watches YouTube. He
Right.
watches kids playing video games and stuff like that. And I was like, back in my day, I played video games. I didn't watch people play.
Yeah, I'll watch the videos if I'm stuck on a part, in a video game to try to get by it, which happens more than I'd like to admit. But I'm not watching someone play this game for hours on end. But that's one thing though that I think Leo or my son will be into. I'm just Leo. Sorry, I keep saying Leo, my son, whatever. But whenever I grab my PlayStation controller and I'm playing, he will grab the other controller and my headset. He'll put on the headset, sit next to me, and he'll just act like he's playing. Or, he'll go up to the screen as I'm playing a game, and if I beat someone up, he'll be like, boom, pow, pow, pow. It's fun to watch him play. So I think within the next couple months, I might just, put him on a Mario game, because I want to say I was around his age when we got a Super Nintendo and Mario World came out. So if I could do it back then, he certainly can do it. He's way smarter than I am. But another thing that I, not so much superhero movies, but like the 90s movies like Homeward Bound, Casper, Hocus Pocus, those movies that were like, especially like the 90s, like kids horror movies that were probably like, we probably shouldn't have been watching, but it was the 90s and, just it's the way we are, I guess.
Oh, I got my kids watching all those.
Yeah.
Casper, yeah, they watch all the old animated Disney movies, right?
Sure.
We watch Home Alone. We watch the Santa Claus. We watch all those. But I want to take a minute and go back to the games. Like that was definitely something I was excited to get my kids started on. I played a lot of games growing up. We kind of like really grew up in like the gaming like boom era, like
right. It was like the renaissance of video games.
Right, like the N64s, the Sega Dreamcast, right? The the PS2, right? Like that was like the prime time for games. But
my older cousins would always be like, "Oh yeah, well we had Atari," and I'd always respond the same. That must have sucked.
yeah, like no offense, but it wasn't the other systems. Like even like Xbox, but that's definitely something that I was excited to get them into, and something you may want to look into for your son is, and maybe next time you're out, you take it. It's Paw Patrol, and the nice thing about it is it actually gives them cues on what buttons to hit.
Oh, great! Yeah. I played the new, it's called Super Mario Wonder, which is like the new 2D Mario. And there's a lot of that with the button cues and everything. The first couple levels when I was playing, I was like, I don't need this, but like two more levels in, I was like, oh, thanks, game. I'm doing really well.
And then the other thing I wanted to say about that too is, so I also will look up when I'm stuck on parts. Like, I tell my son, games are hard, and I think one of the reasons I'm able to think so strategically today is because of all the gaming that I've done as a kid.
I will tell you the reason that I'm not like some like map person or whatever, but I can read a map very well and I can find where I'm at almost immediately. I know that's from playing those big open world video games. There's no way it's not.
Yeah, and like I think it goes unnoticed sometimes, just like some of the skills you pick up from some of that stuff. But like, so Luca will be like, now he'll see me look up some stuff. He'll be like, "Can we look this part up?" I'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So my wife will say that's cheating. And I was like, "What do you think those like expensive magazines that they
You
used
don't
to
have to
sell?"
buy the book anymore, Colin. You can just go on YouTube. And I love the guys that do the videos.
It's called the internet.
It's the internet. I love these guys that do these videos too, because like they're like, they're exactly what you'd expect them to be. Their voices sounding like, and it's just like, you would be making a video about this, but thank you so much. Keep up the great work.
Right? Yeah. But even going back to like the '90s movies, sorry, kind of take us back to the gaming, but
No, dude. Hey, this if we can't jump around on our own show, what are we even doing here?
yeah, we don't have any sponsors, so no one to tell us what to do, right?
Right, no
So,
one's taking us out to lunch yet,
but my kids, they really like that stuff, like, and it's just, it warms my heart.
Oh, I know. I'm not had too many of those moments yet, but last night when we were watching Transformers and I saw him just getting into it, I was just like, yes! Like I was trying to remain calm, but internally it was like the 4th of July. I was just like, this is exactly what I had imagined it being,
I'm so jealous because I try to get my kids into Transformers. They're just not there yet.
Right.
We took them to see this pirate show when we were on vacation at one time. It was a really good show, and Luke, my son he was super into it. So when we got home, I was like, check out this movie. I put on Pirates of the Caribbean. Not interested.
Not interested. He maybe lasted like 2 minutes. He's like, where'd the ship go?
Yeah, exactly. My daughter, she'll watch anything. She is like my mini me when it comes to watching shows. She even was watching. We're going to talk about it next episode on Streamer Botch, but Fallout.
Yeah. Well, here's how I know that to be true. Like, audience, I was at Matt's one time, and it was right when Creed 3 had just come out on digital. Matt bought it. I had seen it in theaters, really liked Creed 3. I was watching it and I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up, his daughter's like sitting right next to me, just like fully involved in this movie. And she was maybe 2.5 at the time. She's just sitting there with her snack, just like, yeah, punch him.
Yeah, she'll watch anything. Yeah, she loves watching shows. And like, and usually it's her and I, like late at night, we're sitting on the couch and, I'll be like, you want me to find something to watch? So I'll introduce her to like a lot of things that I grew up watching, like Homeward Bound. We watched that. She really liked that.
Dude, I love that's one of the things that I can't wait to watch with Leo, Homeward Bound, because I'm surprised our VHS survived because I had watched that so many times. Man, that just as a kid, there was nothing funnier than Homeward Bound. The voice acting in that. I like how they didn't do like the mouse not moving. You just was like, you just heard the voices, but those 3 actors that did it, I think Michael J. Fox and Sally Field.
Yeah.
I don't know who did the older dog, but man, just hysterical. And it's all kid humor,
Shadow.
Oh, Shadow. Yeah. Oh man. Poor little guy gets stuck in the mud pit at the end. Killer.
In one of the movies actually, like that same way with me that I used to watch all the time as a kid was Space Jam.
Yeah.
And I cannot get the kids into that. Like they're not interested in that.
I think though Space Jam, that was a very much so a product of its time. And I feel like you kind of had to be there for that. Not to say that people can't get into it now, but everybody was swept up in Space Jam when that happened. I mean, it's Michael Jordan coming to the end of his like historic run with the Chicago Bulls. Looney Tunes were like still a thing, kind of, so.
Yeah, those were good times. Anything on the horizon that you're planning on introducing them to besides like the video games?
He is like your son. He's real into Spider-Man, to the point where before I came down here to record this episode, he wore his Spider-Man pajamas last night, and they're in the hamper, and he was pulling them out of the hamper and like holding them up, like, put this back on me. with that look, and it's like, whoa. He's getting into the show. I don't know what it's called, but it's on Disney, and it's like the computer animation. It's him, it's Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy, but they don't call him Miles Morales, or it's not Gwen. It's like Twisty or something like that.
Spidey and his
Yeah,
amazing friends. Yeah, we
yeah,
watched that too.
right. He's got all the toys, so he's starting to get into Spider-Man, and I'm waiting for the right moment when he's like kind of sitting eating his snack. I'm just gonna randomly put on videos of the movies of Spider-Man swinging, and I'm gonna start it slow there. So I think that's how we're gonna get our foot in the door there. But for right now, I will play Transformers movies until the Blu-rays break. I don't even care.
I'm over here like that a boy.
Attaboy. and and because I brought up the Transformers movie so many times, like this movie came out in 2007, Matt. I'm watching these movies thinking like this still looks good. This animation, like what are people's excuses today where everything like looks like crap?
I say the same thing, man. Even when I'm watching movies like Home Alone, like, and the thing with a lot of those like '90s movies too, the reason why they've held up is because there is a lot less computer animation. But like you said, even in some of the movies where you know you just wonder what happened. Like, we talked about the Flash one episode, right? Like, what happened there? Transformers looks better than the Flash.
It really does. Well, Transformers looks real, and it's almost 20 years old. Like it looks like I believe that truck just became Optimus Prime. That's how real it looks. And he gets swept away. You watch the Flash, and it's like, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse has better animation than this, and that animation is awful. But how about you? Anything on the horizon that you want to introduce your kids to?
I'm trying to think. Not really. I mean, we watch a lot of stuff. We go to the movies a lot. There's a lot of kids movies coming out. This summer that we're gonna go check out. I would say some of the more adult kind of like old, like the superhero stuff. I think I'm waiting for that to kind of happen.
Sure.
But we'll see what happens, with that. But that would probably be the next thing, like the Marvel like cinematic universe.
You should really introduce your kids, maybe scar them a little bit, and show them the never-ending story. That way, they can feel the pain that we've felt all these years.
So Frank has that on his movies anywhere, and I was like, I'm gonna do this to myself, and I put it on one night, and I was like, why? And I was sitting there like, Atreyu.
Oh, such a great movie, but definitely leaves a mark on you, and not in the way that you wanted to, I guess.
Stupid wolf is like chasing me in my dreams.
With those stupid eyes that are scary.
Yeah, his big fangs and in his little hole, like scary stuff, man. All right.
I think that's it. We can do no more tonight.
And on that note,
No.
Hey, if you'd like to sponsor us,
we enjoy lunch. I would tell you we enjoy dude too, but that's already been taken care of because you drug your feet.
Right. But hey, that's gonna do us all for us today. We'll catch you next time. Same streaming time, same streaming platform. Later, everybody.